She didn't just rule Egypt. She ruled minds, hearts, and destinies, and those who dared underestimate her rarely survived the consequences. History remembers the crown, the palaces, the gold, but almost no one remembers the danger hidden behind Cleopatra's gaze, the silent predator lurking behind the throne. Cleopatra VII was not merely a queen. She was a force of nature, a living paradox of power and cunning, beauty and terror, intellect and manipulation. She weaponized curiosity, obedience, and fear, bending men and nations alike to her will without drawing a sword or shedding a drop of blood. From her earliest days, Cleopatra understood that survival in the Ptolemaic court required more than charm. It demanded domination, foresight, and the ruthless use of presence. Every glance she cast, every gesture she made, every pause in conversation carried weight, invisible yet crushing, capable of unsettling allies, terrifying enemies, and inspiring devotion simultaneously. She was born into a world where bloodlines were destiny and weakness meant death, and she learned that the eyes could kill, the silence could terrify, and the mind could conquer more than armies ever could. Her father, Ptolemy XII, ruled Egypt with cunning and paranoia, teaching her that power was perception, and perception was survival. She learned to measure her steps, to calculate every move, to observe every whisper in the corridors of power. By 16, she was co-ruler with her brother Ptolemy XIII, and the palace had already become a battlefield of minds, where strategies were spoken in silence and intentions were hidden behind masks of politeness. Cleopatra discovered early the deadliest weapon of all: psychological dominance. She could bend generals, diplomats, and kings alike with a tilt of the head, a quiet word, or a look that lingered just long enough to create unease. She became a master of influence that no army could challenge. When Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria, history remembers the queen being rolled up in a carpet, a moment steeped in legend, but few understand the deadly strategy behind it. Cleopatra did not seek favor. She demanded influence, control, and respect, turning curiosity into obedience and presence into authority. Every word was a calculated strike, every gesture a carefully placed pawn in the game of empire. Caesar found himself questioning his own judgment, caught in a web he could not see. Orchestrated by a queen whose mind was sharper than any blade. Her alliances with powerful men were never mere romances. They were calculated maneuvers designed to secure Egypt's independence, manipulate empires, and ensure her survival. She perfected the art of ambiguity, leaving allies unsure whether they were being loved or ensnared, leaving enemies uncertain if they had been outwitted or seduced. Rumors over centuries have misrepresented her influence, painting her as a seductress and reducing her genius to lust. But the truth is far more terrifying. Cleopatra conquered not with armies, but with the weaponization of intellect, perception, and subtle psychological terror. She outwitted men who commanded legions, controlled the fate of nations from private chambers, and held emperors under her sway with nothing more than presence and wit. After Caesar's assassination, she aligned with Mark Antony, repeating the same patterns of invisible domination, using political intimacy as leverage, bending the course of wars, and shaping allegiances without drawing a sword. Decisions were twisted, loyalties reshaped, and power exerted in whispers and glances. In the corridors where no one could see her move, yet everyone felt her influence. Betrayal from those closest to her could not touch her, because she understood that the mind is a weapon far deadlier than any army, and perception is the ultimate form of power. Cleopatra's death did not erase her dominion. Her cunning, her strategic brilliance, and her ability to manipulate perception reverberate through history. She remains a warning to rulers, diplomats, and strategists. True power lies not in force, not in armies, not in wealth, but in the ability to control perception, bend desire, and manipulate influence unseen. She did not rule with brute force alone. She shattered minds, controlled hearts, and left shadows where legacies should have been. Those who believed they commanded her were already hers. Desire was her weapon, perception her battlefield, and every move she made was a calculated strike. In her presence, men questioned reality, doubted loyalty, and feared consequences, invisible yet inevitable. Cleopatra VII remains a force of psychological terror cloaked in elegance, beauty, and intellect. A queen whose shadow stretches across centuries, reminding us that the deadliest weapon is not in your hands but in your mind. Archaeologists still chase her remains, excavating temples and uncovering tens of thousands of bronze coins bearing her image. Recent discoveries around Taposiris Magna in Egypt, hundreds of coins, submerged ports, and artifacts from her era suggest that her burial place may still lie hidden beneath the sands or waters of the Mediterranean. A final secret waiting to surface. Cleopatra's life defied conventions and expectations. She was a queen who ruled in a world dominated by men, a strategist who used alliances as weapons, and a figure whose real power lay not in her throne, but in her ability to manipulate perception itself. History remembers the jewel-encrusted throne, but it is the queen's unseen strategies, whispered alliances, and psychological grip over the greatest rulers of her time that remain her most deadly legacy.